we last year this time when I was on with you, we had a recession predicted, but they kept pushing out. Now, what's that attribute to? In the U.S. particularly, it's attributable to the U.S. consumer. We have people who are making money, are employed, unemployment's very low, they're getting paid more. Inflation's still tough on a lot of them, so you can't discount that, but on the other hand, the stock market being up, on the other hand, they've accumulated wealth, on the other hand, they're making a lot more money. Our teammates are making a lot more money than they made in 19 just because of inflation and what we did, and all that gives them more money to spend. So in the end of the day, that helps, but the American consumer is what pushed that recession out more than anything else.
And as you balance that very positive American consumer, the US economy, which continually surprises on the upside, you've got these known unknowns, if you will, the Red Sea, the Gaza and the Middle East, any one of which could tip us completely in the other direction.
And that's the wall of worry that you usually have your wall of worry up there. You don't have it this year, but usually, look, if you look out as a CEO, you got to think about what could happen in the Middle East, the Red Sea, and the shipping. You could think about what happens if you have an escalation of Ukraine and Russia. What happens in Taiwan, China. That bothers you. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of demand going on now. Our companies are feeding into that demand and making money, and so it's a conundrum about how far in the future you can depend on things, and that'll play out as we get through some of this geopolitical tension.
Political tensions. Glad you mentioned them. You didn't think you were going to get out of here without the Iowa caucuses.
I assume that might be.
Yeah, absolutely. How concerned are you at the prospect of a second Trump presidency? Or maybe you're not concerned at all?
As I tell people, we've been around since 1784. That election in 1800, they made a great show about it called Hamilton and stuff. So, a CEO's job, a company's job is to be ready for anything. And whether it's, no matter which administration, the prior Trump, the current Biden administration wins, we'll be ready to go. Will ebb and flow of what happens and the reactions, sure. Will have impacts around the world, sure. But the job of us is to be prepared. And that's what's neat about the U.S. is the private sector, the state and local governments, everything functions and the government functions. And sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's even more interesting. But the reality is we've got to wait for the American people to decide, and then we got to go through it.
So does it bother you that there is a split, that the country is split?
Look, in the end of the day, America, it would be good if we had more unifying forces. There's many people that say that. That's not news. And so we push the people to the middle because at the end of the day, the U.S. system of capitalism, entrepreneurship, innovation is what drives the whole world. Pre-financial crisis, the American-U.S. economy, the European-U.S. economy is about the same size. The American economy is probably 80% bigger now. That's because of our recovery power, and we can't forget that. We got to let the U.S. economy, the private sector, but it's got to have the right motives and do it the right way.
Even though in 24, the consensus is it's not going to be a banner year for investments.
In the end of the day, our team has the markets up for the year and things like that. But it was a pretty strong year last year, and everybody thought it wasn't going to be such a good year. We've made $100 billion at our company after tax since the pandemic hit. And people thought the world was going to come to an end in March of 2020, and it didn't. And so that's the power of the private sector and employment and everything going on. And so we just got to keep driving that. Now, for the next 5 days, we'll be this annual hand-wringing event where everybody will be worried about everything, and you'll learn more. And that's what we're here, is to learn about people.
Pick your pen.
I'll be green.
You're going to be green, right. So it's where are we in terms of, as a society, companies, whatever, how you want to define it? I mean, the IMF says we're not ready, and a lot of people say we're not ready. But where do you think we are between that?
I think we're here because it has such unusual promise.
Yes.
And so unprepared, not in a negative sense, that we don't understand what it can do yet.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's.
And which of these? Oh, you can write your own if you've got.
Yeah. I'd say understanding of power. The power is the biggest issue I see.
Really, this is really its potential.
Yeah, we just we don't understand it, and by understand the negative part of that and the positive part of it.
Yeah. That's in many ways that's the fascinating bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we sort of don't know what it can do.
We've seen what it might do. We've seen what it could do, and by the fact we use it in our company today to do certain very controlled things, but that tells you it's pretty powerful, and so we just got to learn with it. But like vaccines, like the car. There's a lot of things we had to learn about over the course of history, and we got to learn about this.